Loot boxes have been under some controversy for a while now in video games. Some of you may remember a video I made around 5 months ago when Star Wars Battlefront 2 was coming out, and it was revealed by EA that it would take an extraordinary number of hours to unlock some of the classic heroes such as Darth Vader in the game, or alternatively, they could be purchased through loot boxes. There was a massive backlash, and I made a video talking about how different games had cosmetics and unlockable items in their loot boxes, whereas EA was deciding to go a step further and essentially unlock main content in the game behind a paywall, basically forcing you to play an insane number of hours to be able to unlock the content or pay the money to be able to play as characters that are already available in the game. This prompted a lot of investigations by various authorities around the world, and the one that was mentioned in my video was that of Belgium. Belgium put in a strong investigation as to whether loot boxes were going to be considered gambling. They focused around not just the morality of these things, but also the legality, and whether or not they should even be allowed in video games. Time has gone on and there's been a lot of debate, but as recently as a few days ago, Belgium announced that loot crates are in fact considered gambling and now will be illegal in their country. Their investigation focused on 4 games: FIFA 18, Overwatch, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, and Star Wars Battlefront 2. The irony of this investigation is that of those 4 games, only Star Wars Battlefront 2, the game that actually triggered this investigation, was found to not violate the terms of gambling. The reason being because after the negative backlash from the community, EA in fact removed microtransactions from the game for the time being. However, the other games were found to be in violation of gambling laws in Belgium. Obviously, these 3 games come from different companies. FIFA 18 made by EA, Overwatch is from the Activision Blizzard division, while CSGO is from Valve. The response from the Minister of Justice of Belgium said that if loot boxes in these games were not removed, then the perpetrators would face up to 5 years in prison and a fine of up to 800,000 euros. And if minors were involved, those punishments would be doubled. This follows on from last week, where the Netherlands also decided that loot boxes in some of these games were also gambling. And they in fact called for publishers to remove them by mid-June, setting an actual deadline of only a couple of months. Some of you may be asking, what's the big deal? Belgium and the Netherlands, they're relatively small countries in Europe. Who cares if they're banned in there unless you're from that country? Well, they are part of the European Union. And as we know, sometimes EU countries like to follow suit. This could mean larger countries like Germany and France and other members of the EU standing in line together to declare that these loot boxes are in fact gambling and illegal. Rather than focusing on the countries that are making these decisions, it's more important to look at the fact that this is setting a precedent for the rest of the world to look at. Other countries have held their own investigations. Some countries like the UK, still currently part of the EU, and New Zealand have declared that loot boxes aren't in fact gambling. So they are on the other side of the coin. This has raised the question, how is this going to affect games which have these microtransactions in them if you're playing against people from other countries? Are people from areas including microtransactions going to be included in those who aren't able to? Is it going to be more difficult to play the game if you have to use microtransactions, or is it going to be harder for you if you don't have those available? It does raise a lot of questions, and this is obviously only the beginning. Some of you may be saying, I don't play those games, so it doesn't matter. But this was only an investigation on those games. This obviously covers a lot more. FIFA 18 was looked at, and that's obviously one of the biggest sports titles available to EA that use these microtransactions, but there are many more. Overwatch uses your loot boxes to unlock cosmetic items for your character, and they're tied to your account. There's no monetary value attached to these items, but the same goes for games like Quake Champions, Paladins, and Destiny. If CSGO is affected, then of course that's going to mean other games in the Steam Community Market franchise are going to be affected too. Team Fortress 2, PUBG, all of these games that use skins that are able to be bought and sold on the community market on Steam are all going to be affected. Some of you may be saying, hey, I'm from the US. This is a European problem. I don't care. But there are a number of US lawmakers that are introducing bills regarding loot boxes, studying them and enforcing their own investigations. So they're in the midst of doing similar things to see whether or not these can be considered illegal or not. A couple of months ago, the ESRB, in fact, included an in-game purchases label to games that had loot boxes involved in them to show you that if you are buying this game, you may be prompted to spend more or enticed to spend more to gamble for some items. A lot of you may be saying, I don't believe this is gambling. You know, you're putting money into a game, you're buying a key or you're buying a crate, and you kind of expect what's happening. But at the end of the day, there are differences in microtransactions and loot boxes. In general, microtransactions in a lot of mobile games buy you more game time or buy you an item in the game that you want. However, when it comes to loot boxes, in TF2 or CSGO or Overwatch, you buy one of the cases or you buy a key for a case and you don't know what you're getting out of it. That key or case may cost you £1 or £2, however much it is. And once you've bought it, there's a chance that you could get a really, really rare item, or you could get an item that is worth nothing. That's where the gambling aspect comes in. And I think that's more important in games involved in the Steam community market, like TF2, like CSGO, because you can actually sell these items for a profit. The big issue that a lot of people are focusing on rightly is the fact that this is accessible by minors. A lot of these games are aimed at under 18s. Games like CSGO and TF2 do have an age rating for adults. However, other games like FIFA, for example, are aimed at the younger generation. Children play these games and obviously want to get the best cards, the best players, and they are prompted to get their parents to give them money so that they can gamble and try and get these cards. This is new ground for the gaming community, as it's the first time I think anyone has been challenged on loot boxes and microtransactions. This has all been prompted by EA's greed less than half a year ago. At the moment, we're at a crossroads. Belgium wants the Gaming Commission and gaming developers to talk to each other about what they're going to do moving forward regarding loot boxes. This could lead to many different things happening in games. Those countries having restrictions from markets and having restrictions from being able to have loot boxes, or it could see a major overhaul of the games themselves. It's difficult to see the latter happening though, considering Activision Blizzard made almost half their revenue from microtransactions from loot boxes in their games last year. If you're making that much money from something, these guys are going to fight tooth and nail to try and keep it in their repertoire. This could mean big changes in the economies of CSGO, PUBG, TF2, and it's worth keeping an eye on if you're invested in those games. As the months go on, especially as the Netherlands enforces their ban in June, we'll have to see how things progress. But as for now, I have no idea where this is going to head. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope this was interesting for you to listen to. Take care, and I'll see you next time.